All right, and we're still seeing folks joining, but we're going to go ahead and get started here for a workshop session on the technical track for real time. The name of this session is Nailing the Data, Design, and Delivery for Your Automated Operational Reporting. So to get started, we're just going to start by going through a quick agenda of what we're going to cover in today's workshop. We're going to start in the slides today just by sharing some of the concepts that are going to be persistent throughout the workshop. But 90% of the time is going to be spent in the VividCharts product actually building together. So in the slides, we'll cover reporting as a workflow. We're going to cover the 3Ds of AOR, data, design, and delivery. And from a build perspective, we're going to build together 3 different report types that we can build with VividCharts. Dashboards, automated slide decks, and scaled report generation. Throughout the workshop, feel free to drop questions in the Q&A. We'll keep an eye on that throughout. If it makes sense to field some on the fly, we could do that, but we'll definitely reserve some time at the end for any questions that come up. So with that, just going to give a quick intro and background on myself. Rob Walsh, one of the founders here at VividCharts, and I focus on our sales and go-to-market efforts, which really ties into what we're going to do today, because I spend a lot of time throughout the week talking with ServiceNow customers about their reporting challenges, the report types they're trying to automate, and actually building in, demos and even customer instances, some of the reports that we're going to build together today. So really excited. Thank you all for attending, and let's go ahead and dive in. So these concepts are going to be persistent throughout the workshop today. At VividCharts, we truly view reporting as a workflow, and that workflow has 3 key components: the data, the design, and the delivery of any report type. Now, this gives a lens of the tools and components of our product, but also gives a lens of some of the constraints we typically hit when we're trying to provide reporting to different audiences, stakeholder groups, executives internally. From a data perspective, this factors into where we're getting the data in the ServiceNow platform from a standard table, performance analytics. Do we need to go to multiple tables? Do we need to apply calculations to the data? How is it actually being visualized? What charts are we going to be using? Common constraints, and you'll see parts of our platform that alleviate those constraints. From a design perspective, this is what the report actually looks like, the colors we're using, logo inclusion, the layout of the report itself, but it's also what is the type of report we're designing. So is it a self-service dashboard style report, which we would design in a certain way, or is it an automated slide deck that we actually need to present, include free text, annotate on, and all of that becomes really easy in our drag and drop editor. So that's where we're going to be focusing on the design. And then from a delivery standpoint, how are we actually serving these reports up to our end users? Or are we presenting the report to an audience, via an automated slide deck where we're presenting the data? Are we having a need internally to distribute via email in an automated fashion? Do we need to share with non-fulfiller users the reports that we're building? So these 3 buckets make up the end-to-end reporting workflow that we're going to be facilitating. And if I jump over to our next slide, this will start to show you some of the building blocks we're going to be using today in the VividCharts platform. So at the bottom layer, the foundation of all of this is the data sources within the ServiceNow platform. So you have standard tables, performance analytics, database views, report sources, as well as ServiceNow's APIs. Within the VividCharts platform, in the data layer, you're going to see our flexible chart library, which includes many general use data visualizations that you can use for different data types across the platform. You're also going to see charts we've added to the library that include the ability to go to multiple tables and visualize data, as well as calculate data on the fly and visualize derived data in reports. You'll see some process-specific visuals that we have in the library for ITSM and SPM specifically. And specialized charts we're not going to get into today, but it's important to call out here because it does open a lot of opportunities and a lot of creativity to answer big, hairy reporting problems and data questions. But we need to do something a little bit more specialized to accomplish it. In the design layer, we're going to spend a lot of time in the VividCharts editor, which is a drag and drop interface, similar to a PowerPoint editor. And that's where we have access to our color palettes, our ability to style charts and other elements without needing any code, adding logos, images, free text, shapes, things like that. And then from a delivery standpoint, we'll look at the sharing mechanisms in VividCharts, so how we can share with non-licensed users, the easy ability to export to PDF or PowerPoint. And then most importantly, the 3 different report types that serve very different purposes. We're going to be looking at building a dashboard together, as well as an automated slide deck. And then we're going to show the end-to-end creation of a scaled report. So I'm going to show an already created version of a scaled report. And then we're going to start from an out-of-the-box VividCharts template and show you how easy it is, in probably under 15 minutes to actually make that your own and apply it at scale. So with that, I am going to jump out of the slides and we're going to go into the VividCharts product here. So I'm intentionally just going to start in my ServiceNow home screen here. So you can see we're in a ServiceNow instance. To get to VividCharts, we're just a plugin that lives directly in your environment. So if I have the VividCharts roles, I just search VividCharts and I find our application here. And when I click home, I'm taken to the VividCharts homepage. Now, we're going to interact with a few different areas of the platform today throughout the workshop. But to start, we're going to go into what I have built here, and it's called the real-time collection. So a collection is just a folder that we've used to organize things that we built in VividCharts. When you use collections, you can build collections for customers and end users and share them out, or you can just use them to personally organize your VividCharts assets. So for our first one, we're going to go into the real-time collection here. And we're going to start with the first report type, and it's going to be a dashboard. So I've got our real-time dashboard here. And if I click the pencil icon, I'm going to be taken into the VividCharts editor. So just to get a feel for what we're looking at here, the editor is where we design and control the data aspects of the report that we're building. So everything in the editor is really easy, drag and drop. It's easy to resize different elements. So this is modeled off of an experience everyone's comfortable with, like a PowerPoint or a Canva-like drag and drop experience. But it's also where we can control the data aspects of our charts as well as the styling. So if I just look at this chart here that we already have created, I'll notice 2 menus at the top, a data menu and a style menu. If I open up the data menu, that's where we're going to see the conditions that we have applied to the chart. We're going to see what groupings we have defined, how we're aggregating the data, whether we want it to be clickable, and other chart options that are really dependent on which visual we've chosen. The data menu also has its own data tab that's going to show us whether we're pulling from a table, database view, what is our data source, and what table are we looking at? So we're looking at the incident table for this chart. The style menu for each chart is going to have a combination of consistent menus that all charts are going to have, like the title. So our consistent menus will apply to things like titles and data labels, containers, styles, where we control whether we want the title on there or not. We can control the size in really easy, no-code fashion. And we can also control things like whether we want it bold, italicized, etc. So we're going to spend some time in the style menu as we're building some new charts together, but important to call out some of the common elements that we'll see across chart types, as well as some of the chart-specific styling options. So If we just look at this dashboard, we already have some work done here, but it looks like we've got some real estate down here on the bottom to add a few new charts. So to add a new chart, we're going to go over to the menu on the left-hand side here and pop open the charts menu. The charts menu is going to show our full library of chart types, which includes, again, a combination of general use data visualizations, some charts that are specific to certain process areas like change management, project management, as well as charts that go to multiple tables like our RIDAC list, our SPM list, and can perform calculations like our calculated score up here. So we're going to use really all of those throughout today's workshop. But for our next chart, we've got a good overview here on today's workload as far as incidents by the categories. But maybe we want to tie some of that into what CIs are the incidents actually related to. So let's add another score list below this that's going to group by the CI and show us our top CIs as far as incidents go today. So I'll open up the chart menu here, and I'll just search for our score list chart. I'll select that. I'll choose my data source as table, and we're going to go to the incident table for this chart. Once we're on the chart, we can just start to add our conditions. So we want to say we're only looking at incidents that were opened, and we only want to look at today, and we want to group by configuration item. Now we have the option to aggregate the data in different ways. So we'll aggregate by count, and we'll make it clickable, and we want to see the percentage total here. For this, we could set the limit to whatever we want, but maybe for this view, we're just interested in what are the top 5 currently. And then we want to do value descending, so our highest counts are at the top. So if I click save, you'll see my chart has built here, and I'm able to place it directly under that chart in the space that we have there, where I can start to resize it, fit it nicely in the space that we have, and then we can start to style it to match the rest of the dashboard. For styling, I'm going to move the chart over to the right just a little bit, because when I open up the style menu, I want to be able to see the changes that I'm making. So the first thing we want to do is probably give this thing a title. So we'll give it a title of today's top CIs. From our other chart, we could see the title of all the others is 32 pixels, and we center align that. We can also see we have a nice white background for all of our other charts, so we can open up the container styles here and give this one a white background as well. And what's really nice in the editor is I can toggle back and forth between other charts here to see what styles I have applied already. So if I toggle back to this chart, I can see our labels are 20 pixels in bold. So I can mimic that in this chart, 20 pixels in bold. And then our data values, we can look at are also 20 pixels, but they're not bold. So we'll make this 20 pixels. Doesn't need to be bold. And now we're matching the chart above in a nice consistent set of styles. So we've completed our first chart just like that. What we can do now is look at, okay, we've got open incidents by state up here in a nice donut chart. Maybe we want something similar for incidents, but looking at the data through the priority lens. So we'll go back up and open our charts menu. We'll search for our donut chart. And again, we're going to be going to the incident table. Clicking save. And for this, we want to group by priority rather than category. And for this, maybe we're only interested in incidents in a certain state, and we only want new or in progress or on hold. And you can see we've got a few other options here. So we do want to make this clickable. And you saw in the other donut chart, we do have a score giving the total in the center, which is nice. So I'll toggle that option as well. So now we have our chart ready to place where we want it. I can start to resize it, and then we can style this one as well. So if I open up the style menu, we'll give this chart a title, and we'll call this Open Incidents by Priority. And we'll make the title 32, center align it. We've got to make our container background of white. And then we can start to look at some of the more unique style options we have just for the donut chart. So it looks like above we do have some labels showing up here telling us what slice or what state each slice is telling us. So we can go to the data labels menu here, toggle our labels on, and we can also update the chart colors to the VividCharts palette so it's nice and consistent with the other charts. Some of the more unique style options that we have on the donut chart, if I go down here to the radius menu, you can see there's a little bit more space and skinnier slices on the top chart. So I have the little slider bar here so I can kind of mimic that on the bottom chart here as well. And I can give some padding between, which looks aesthetically pretty nice. What's also cool that I'll call out, and this is not just available on the donut chart, but there are situations where we maybe want to sort the data in a specific way, really useful on like vertical bar charts where you have a state flow. So we have the ability to custom sort this. So if we want to change where a slice is appearing, we have the ability to just set our own custom order, whether that's on a donut or something like a vertical bar. All right, so we have our second chart done here. Looks like I got to resize it just a hair. And then we've got a little bit of real estate down here in the bottom right where we can add another stacked bar. So we'll do a vertical stacked bar. And the above chart is looking at incidents by category. And maybe on this, we want to show incidents by contact type. So we'll click Save, and we'll choose that as our primary grouping. So the contact type, and maybe we want it to stack by category. We'll make it clickable, click Save, and our chart is built. So we can start to resize it to fit it in the space that we have. Give it a title. And we'll just title this one Contact Type, 32 pixels, center aligned. Got to do our container style, a nice white background. Swap out the VividCharts color palette. And then you can see here on the above chart, we have the counts displayed. So we want to go to our data labels menu and include the data values. And on the stacked bar, we also have the ability to include individual values for each of those slices. So that's an option that's there and kind of nice for you. And just like that, we've completed the first page of this dashboard. So on a dashboard, you typically, sometimes you'll have scenarios where you just want one page. There are other scenarios where maybe you want a few different tabs available for end users to interact with. So for this dashboard, we've completed the first page, but if I toggle down, you'll see I have two other pages here already created where we're using a tree map visual on this one, and then our incident trend table that's going to group by assignment group and then show us a heat map of the trend series over time. So we have 3 tabs on our dashboard currently. So we could go into the viewer now, but what we also find on dashboards that's pretty useful for end users is giving them the ability to slice the data, right, by different fields within the system. And to do that, we would use our filters. So if I open up our filters menu here, you'll see I have 2 different filters that are going to apply to the full slide deck. So all 3 of the pages we just looked at. And we have one for category and opened on, a date range filter already built. But let's say we want to add a few more, and assignment group is a useful filter when we're looking at incident data. So we'll title that assignment group. We'll choose dropdown, though we do have a few different filter options with the custom dropdown, text search, and date range like we already have. We want to apply this to all the pages that we've looked at. We want to apply it to all the charts, and then we just select our table. So we'll choose the incident table, the assignment group field, and then we want to allow multiple value selections on this. So with that, we have our first filter completed. We click save, and that'll be added to our dashboard. So we've completed one filter. Maybe we want to just add one more to the deck, and we can make it by priority. So we'll choose a dropdown, apply it to the whole deck again, the incident table will map to the priority field. And once again, we'll do ascending and allow multiple value selections. So we now have 3 pages of our dashboard. We have filters for multiple field types in the system. We have a date range filter for when an incident was opened that we can make a selection for. That's feeling pretty good to start to move into, out of the data and design, which happens in the editor, and more into the delivery, which would happen in the viewer. So to go into the viewer, I would just save my view. I'll publish it out, and then I'll click this viewer button in the right-hand corner. So that takes me into the VividCharts viewer here. And in the viewer, we have the ability to toggle between our tabs, just directly in this kind of zoomed out view. We have the ability to open this up in full screen and toggle between the tabs. And the viewer is also where we can take advantage of those filters that we added. So if we open up our filters menu, I could select, let's say we just want to look at cloud management, hardware, and network. And we only want to look at incidents that were created in, let's say, the last 6 months that were either critical or high. We click run, and you'll see that filter is being run against all of the charts on the view here. And so now we're looking at a filtered set of data, and that's persistent across all of our tabs. So as I go tab to tab, you'll see our filter is applied here, and I can even click the little filter button here and see down below which filter conditions we have applied. So from a dashboarding perspective, the delivery side of the report is typically going to be a self-service experience. So an end user comes into the dashboard, they interact with the filters and the charts. And if we have click-through turned on like we do, we can allow those users to actually drill into the direct underlying data within ServiceNow. So you can see here's our ServiceNow list view of all the cloud management incidents that meet our conditions and our filters. Other key aspects from a delivery standpoint are going to be who we actually want to share this dashboard out to. So if I open up this menu here, if I click into the sharing settings, we have control, or I have control as the builder of this, if I want to just provide view access and who I want to have edit access, so they would have the ability to change the charts, the conditions, etc. So we can do view or edit access with any users, groups, or roles in the system. And from a view standpoint, we can also toggle this share with all logged in users. And that allows any user, even if they don't have a paid fulfiller license, to come in and see what we're looking at here in the viewer. What's also useful for some organizations is taking advantage of the public role in ServiceNow. So that's a role that you can assign and even share these without requiring a login. So from a sharing perspective, we have a wide range of users we can distribute this experience to, but we can also download anything in VividCharts to PDF or PowerPoint. So that's really handy if you do need to get a hard copy of any dashboard in the hands of a specific user, but it's going to become even more important when we go into the second report type and the third, automated slide decks and scaled reports. So before we do that, the last thing to call out from a delivery standpoint is something kind of unique here. We went into full screen mode on the view that we were looking at. You'll notice here we can also add a loop in here where we can put dashboards up on a wall monitor in our physical office spaces and actually cycle between the tabs every 30 to 60 seconds. So a lot of flexibility from a delivery standpoint for dashboards. But when we think about the broader set of workflows that reporting is applied to in our ServiceNow environments, there are many scenarios where we maybe need to not just provide access to the data, but present the data in an operational review. And those are scenarios where it's pretty common to just start screenshotting charts from ServiceNow reporting, exporting data to massage it, getting our metrics right, and then putting it in a PowerPoint presentation. With VividCharts, we can actually automate that portion of the workflow so you can focus on interpreting the data and adding key insights to the data for the audience that you're presenting to. So let's actually go back here into the editor, and we'll go back one more time, which will take us to that real-time collection. And let's go into a slide deck example. So we have our real-time service desk review here. I'll click the pencil icon, and that's going to take me back into the editor. But right off the bat, you'll see this slide looks a lot different from what we were looking at on our dashboard. This looks like the title slide to a presentation, and it's designed that way. So we do have other slides that we'll get to that include charts as well as free text. But it looks like for our operational review, we're still showing August here, and we're in the month of October. So we need to be presenting on a different month here. So we can just open up our text editor and update that to October. And our text is going to update there. We can adjust the size. And then it looks like it's looking nice. It's using the VividCharts color, but we're missing a logo on this slide. So we can add any image type to a slide. So we see customers putting screenshots in these presentations, even from other platforms, but it's also really useful for logos. So I'll just upload a logo, and that's going to put it right on our slide where we can place it where we need, resize, and call this title slide done. Now, as we page through, what's really nice about the automated slide deck concept is you can build a standard template that automates the visualization of the data. So you can see these charts are already built. They have their own data conditions already applied. So I don't have to rebuild that on a monthly basis. It's already there for me. But what I do need to do on a monthly basis is interpret the data and update the context and the story that we're telling around the data. So if I just look at this piece of text here, I can open up the style menu, go into our text editor, and I could change this entire thing completely and replace it. I could just update certain parts of it. So I could change this to 83%, and I could change this to be, July if I wanted to. So we have full control over the automation of the charts and making it really easy to just update the story that we're telling with the charts. So let's just say when we gave this presentation or operational review last month, this slide was really useful in the discussion, but it started leading us into a discussion around not just trending of incidents over time, but wanting more detail and granularity on what are the assignment groups where we're seeing higher volumes with each month over time. So if you remember from our dashboard example, we have a really nice trend table chart that's already out there via self-service. Maybe the audience for this already has access to that, but it would be a really nice value add to include in this presentation. We can start to iterate on our template by easily just making a copy of a given slide. Once we've made a copy, we can just delete off the content that we don't want and start to build slides from scratch. So if I open up our charts menu here, we've built a number of charts from scratch already, but I already have that chart built on a dashboard that I need for my presentation. So for that, I can leverage what we call chart templates. So if I toggle over to the chart templates, you'll see a number of out-of-the-box chart templates that VividCharts just provides. But I also have chart templates that I've saved on my own. They're reports that I've built. So if I choose this real-time incident trend table, it's going to drop that exact chart we were looking at in the dashboard for use in my presentation here. And this is a pretty sizable chart, so we can just delete that title off the top and place it where we need to. So now we have a further breakdown of our incident data in an area that was driving discussion at the leadership level in our last review. And we know from the heat map that makes it easier for us to identify spikes. So we can see the month of August, we had spikes in change management and central qualifiers. So when we're presenting, we want to use charts to show us the information, but we also can use slides to really call the attention and drive the conversation in certain areas. So a really nice way to do that is to leverage shapes. So if I open up the shapes menu, you can see we've got a number of shapes to work with. But let's say we wanted to draw our discussion to this area specifically. I could put the rectangle right over that. I could just give it a transparent background, make it red so it calls out and demands attention. And we want to give it a little bit of a thicker weight. So our eyes are drawn there. And so now I've got a shape that's going to draw the conversation to where I want the conversation to go and where we can have the most productive dialogue. So really useful way to combine what we know and love about dashboards, which are more self-service, and what we know and love about slide decks, which are about telling a story and driving discussions. So we've got a second or a new slide added to our monthly presentation here. But let's say we also got feedback last time that that tree map visual that we had on our dashboard is also useful, but we want to look at that through just last month's lens. If we just make a copy of this slide one more time, we can delete these elements off. And once again, we can leverage our chart templates to find our tree map that we're using on the dashboard and incorporate it into our presentation here. So we can resize it. And just something I'm noticing as I add that, it looked okay when we were just on a single slide of a dashboard, but we got a lot of blue here. So maybe we want to, adjust the colors that we have applied. And we've got a color palette for our virtual conference today, so we can give it the real-time palette. And that's going to give us, from a design standpoint, a little bit more differentiation on the color between the categories and make it easier to interpret. So we've adjusted some of the styles, but we also might want to adjust, because this is a monthly review, we only want to look at incidents opened last month. So we can make that update as well. So we've added 2 new slides that we know were key to our discussion in the last review. As I start to make my way through the rest of the presentation, we've got our standard slides that we want to have in every month's presentation. So we're breaking our incidents down by department for marketing, adding our context and insights here, breaking it down for medical management, and then a slide where we're looking at things more through the department lens. So all the other slides here we want to have remain the same for our upcoming operational review. But let's say as a platform, we've recently expanded into the demand module to start to formalize our intake process. So our ops review now requires us to present on what is the demand pipeline looking like current state and driving discussions around it. So once again, we can just make a copy of a slide here, we can give this a title of demand pipeline, and we'll delete the charts and content that we don't want. We'll move that to the center. And then we can start to add some charts that are going to speak to and allow us to drive a discussion around what's the current state of the demand pipeline. So once again, I've got a library of charts I could build from scratch, but I do have a few chart templates here that could be useful. So when we stood up demand, we built a demand pipeline dashboard. And so I've got 2 demand charts here I already have saved as chart templates that I can just add to our slide. The first one is going to be one of the charts in the library that is specific to the SPM process area. So this is a nice flow chart that tells us how many demands we have in each state in a flow diagram. The next chart we want to add is going to be a list chart that lists out all of the demands that are open currently and tells us the name, the description, the portfolio, maybe some budget information, and we have full control over what columns we want to include on this. Now, what's really useful in the slide deck context here, you could have slides here where this list of demands could be pretty sizable. And in a meeting, you might want the ability to slice that individual slide down as a part of that discussion. So when we built our dashboard, we built some filters that apply across multiple tabs. But within slide decks, we can add filters that only apply to this slide specifically. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll open up our filters menu here. We want to add a filter, and we'll call this portfolio. Maybe in the meeting, we want to be able to slice this list and see demands just at the portfolio level. We'll make this a drop-down, and we just want to apply it to this single slide that we're on because it's the only one with demand data. We want to apply it to all the charts on the slide, so no need to change that. And we're going to look at the demand table, the portfolio field, and we want to allow multiple value selections. So that's built. We've added a few new slides to our ops review here, and now we're ready to go actually present and get into the delivery side of automated slide decks. So if I just save all of the new work that I've done, click Publish, and go out into the viewer, I'll now see that presentation in the viewer where I can just page through in this nice zoomed out format here. I can present out a full screen mode in VividCharts just like I can in PowerPoint. And I have the ability, if I have click through on in my meeting, to not just drive the discussion and have the context, but drill into the data directly. So it's really a way to take your presentations to a new level. And as we page through, we're seeing some of the slides that we added. So we have our incident trend table, our overlay that's allowing us to drive the discussion to certain areas. So we can run our full presentation directly out of VividCharts here. And if we go to our last slide that we added, the demand slide, we have the ability to stop on this slide and actually run filters against it. So we've got our slide filter here. So if we wanted to look at only the compliance portfolio and maybe the sales demands, we could click run, and it's just going to filter this slide and the charts on this slide. So with an automated slide deck, this is a great way to save time internally, but also add a new dynamic to your presentations and those discussions where you can make it more interactive and data-driven on the fly. So from a presentation standpoint, we could run this directly out of VividCharts. But if we need a hard file at the end, we have a one-click export to PDF or PowerPoint where I get the whole deck and I can share it with everybody in an email afterwards. Just like with our dashboards, we do have the ability to share slide decks as well with users, groups, or roles, as well as all logged in users. So if you don't have that paid ServiceNow license, no problem. You can still come and get slide deck reviews just the way you can with dashboards. So that takes us through our second report type, the automated slide deck. And scaled report generation is going to be our third report type, but it actually really ties into this use case right here. So if we're presenting an ITSM metrics review on a monthly basis, often we want to have slides where we're pulling the lens out, showing trends over time with different visuals. But there are also really high impact records in the system, like major incidents, problem root cause analyses that executives want eyes on and want detailed summaries of. That's going to take us into scaled report generation, where we want to standardize what is the report out we want for those high visibility record types, and how do we produce it at scale for all the records that we need to, and ultimately combine it into a single presentation. So to do that, I'm going to go back out into the editor and back out into the collection here. And for scaled report generation, I'm going to start by showing an already completed scaled report, and then we're going to build one together. And that one's going to be pointed at project. The one I already have built is pointed at major incident. So if I go into the editor, it's the same drag and drop experience that we were looking at before, but we're using some different charts in the library that are just pointing at specific fields in the system. So if I select this chart, for example, or this one, and open up the data menu, I could swap out these fields for any fields that we care about or that our executives require as a part of these reviews. I also have full control over the styling here. So if I wanted to move the logo or change the color scheme here, we'll do that when we build one from scratch. But the same editor gives you full flexibility over the design of this report. Once we've standardized our reporting output here, if I go back over into our collection, we can build what we call summary pages. And this is a completed summary page that's applied to that major incident template that we were just looking at, but against all of the major or all of the incident that meets certain conditions that we decide. So if I open up the view for any one of these, it's going to show me my nice polished summary for that individual incident. I could export this to PDF or PowerPoint. I could share this URL out directly with our stakeholders. But if it's for the purpose of an operational review, maybe I need to add all of the major incidents from last period. So I can select 3 that I want to include in our bundle. I can create a set and call this monthly ops review October. Click save. And then I can open up that bundle as its own presentation here. So now I've got my first incident, my second incident, and my third incident, all in that standardized, polished format that I could share directly, but I could also export the full bundle as a PDF or PowerPoint to combine into a broader reporting package. So I wanted to start with scaled report generation, showing the full concept with an already created report, like we're looking at here for major incident. But it's really useful to understand how much work is it actually to take one of the out-of-the-box templates from VividCharts and get to what we're looking at here. So that's what we're going to do next. So to do that, I'm actually just going to go to the VividCharts homepage. And most of the workshop today, we've given ITSM a lot of the lens. So for this one, let's give SPM a little bit of attention here. So I'm going to go to our project status hub. And we're going to create a new scaled report template from scratch. So I'll go into our templates menu here. And you'll see I have a ton of user-generated templates from different demos I'm doing throughout the week. But we also see our VividCharts out-of-the-box templates down below. So this would be the scratch starting point for a new customer. You can see we've got templates for different record types, for demand reviews, program, major incident. But for this one, we're going to choose project, and we'll choose the dark theme here. So to make my own version of this, I would just create view from the template. And this is going to make a copy of that template and take me back into the editor where I can fine tune it for my needs. All right, so now we find ourselves back in the editor with our project status template already mapped pretty well. You can see we've got charts here pulling from the project status table. We've got charts pulling from the project task table for key milestones. We've got charts pulling from the project record directly. And then we have a few charts that don't seem to be mapped. So all I need to do is come in and just add a record to map it to, and it's going to populate the data there. So I'll click save. And so we already have our first page pretty well complete here. If I go to our second page, you can see we've got another chart on the second page that's one of our multi-table list charts that's going to show all of our risks, issues, decisions, actions in a single list chart. So we've got an out-of-the-box template that's looking pretty good here, but as a PMO, we've just added financial information to our template or to our practice. So maybe we want to start to include some financial data on our template here. So to do that, we're actually going to add a new chart type here. And we'll do that by going to the charts menu. And let's say we want to present our planned budget for the project, our actuals to date, our estimate to completion, and then the variance, which is going to be a calculation across all of those fields. To do that, we would select our list chart here. We'd pick our data source, and we're going to go to the project table for this. Click save, and then we can add our columns. We want to look at our planned cost. We want to look at our actual cost. We want to look at our estimate to completion, and we want to look at our variance. But when I look for variance, I actually don't have that available on that record because it's a calculation-driven field. So what we can do is just add this column, but leave it empty, and we can use our style menu to build a calculated column on the list chart. So we'll just click save there. We want to just sort this by project name. It's a status report. And so on our template, we just want to limit this to one project. And we're going to apply this template across many projects when we build a summary, but we'll just limit this to one here. So we'll click save. So now I've got our chart completed over here. And from a style perspective, I'll just leave it on the right-hand side of the screen so I can see the updates that I'm making. And we'll open up the style menu. So we can give this a title. We'll call it financials. And our title in the other ones is going to be white. So we'll adjust that. And then let's build our calculated column here. So to do that, I would go to the column calculation section. I would select our empty column here, column 4. We'll give it a title. And so this will be our variance. And then we build our calculation. So for our variance calculation, we want to take the total planned cost. We want to subtract, though we can do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. But we want to subtract the actual cost. And then we want to also subtract the estimate to completion. And that's going to give us our variance. So I'll click save, and you'll see our calculated value has appeared in the variance column. Now, the first thing I notice is this is financial information, and I'm just seeing numbers here, and I don't see any dollar formatting. So we can start to use our column formatting to fix that. And you can see in the list chart above, we're already doing some column formatting here, conditionally coloring the cell red based on the current status. And we'll do something similar to format this financial data. So I'll just give this style a color or a title of financial data. We want to apply this to all of the columns since they're all financial data. We want to apply this style to all of the rows. We want our text to be white, just like it is in the other styles. And we want to just toggle this to let the chart know it's a currency field, and we want it presented in USD. So we'll click Save, and now we've got that column formatted properly as financials. So the chart is looking pretty good here. We can just start to touch up the styles and mimic the way the list chart is looking above. So if I open up the style menu here, it looks like the header is a slightly different color, but I don't have this in any of my color palettes. So what I can do is click this plus icon here, and that's going to allow me to use this color picker, where if I click that, I can just point it at that color on that other chart, and it's going to color my header the same exact color. So we've got our header defined there. This is where we could also adjust whether we want things to be bold. And we also have the ability to look at, okay, total planned cost isn't all capitalized. So we could capitalize that in our header. Same with actual cost. You could name these something completely different if your audience has a different expectation or terminologies they use. But for now, we'll just add capital letters there. And we're looking pretty good. The last thing I see that we need to do is just look at the container styles and give this a background. That's the same as the chart above. All right. So now we've added our financials chart. We've added a calculated column within that chart. And we need to just map this. Save and map this one up top again. So now we can save our template. Make sure our two slides are looking good. So we've got slide 1 and slide 2. So now we've made the project status template our own. We've added our financial information. What happens when we want to start to apply this against all the projects in the system? To do that, we would just follow this save template flow. And I'm actually going to take a screenshot because we'll want to use this as our thumbnail when we add a new template. So I'll take a screenshot here. I'll click Save Template, go to Next, and we'll want to use the project record, but you can see these are out-of-the-box mappings for different record types. Click Next. VividCharts is going to map all of these tables automatically, but if we did add a new table or you have a new related list that you use on your project records, you would have the ability to add that in the mapping here and use it on your template. So we'll click Save, and we'll just call this Real-Time Project Status. And the description will just use the same thing. This is a similar screenshot. We want to use the one that has the financials on it. So we'll just add that in there. And then what we can do is actually preview this with any record that we want. So this is a record I know has good data. And just to make sure everything's mapping correctly, I can just click this preview. And it's going to generate my project status report just for that project. So it looks like all of our data is mapped correctly. It's got our new financial chart on here. And if I page to slide 2, we've got our RIDAC list chart showing us our issues, decisions, and risks. So things are looking good. We can go ahead and save this as a new summary template. We'll just click Save at the top, like VividCharts prompts us to. And now there's no more work that we need to do in the editor. We just need to apply this against the different project records in our system. So to do that, I'll go back to the Apps menu, into our Project Status Hub, and into our Summary Builder this time, and go through the configuration flow. So this is the same flow, regardless if you're looking at project or other record types like demand or major incident or problem. So for this one, we can use one of our other templates that we have saved here. So I'll just choose this demand review, click save. And then the next thing it's going to prompt us to do is select our record or our tile type. So if I select the preview here, you can see I have a nice list view that gives me different data points about a given demand. And there's different options here. So this is more of a card style, just giving me different data points and a different look and feel. So I like that one. So we'll make that as our selection. And it looks like we have, close to 8,000 demands in the system. So maybe we want to filter this down to a specific portfolio. So we want to just look at the sales portfolio that has a few records in it. So we'll make that selection and just click save. And open them up in the viewer as a bundle. So here we have our 4 demands. And I can open up any one of these. And we see our nice polished format with precisely the data that we want. Export to PDF or PowerPoint. Now, the last thing we're going to show in our workshop is gets more into the delivery side of scaled report generation, but there are scenarios where we definitely want to package up multiple demands together and just open them up as a bundle. So I'll just do that and I'll create a set. We'll name this Steerco, real time. Click save. And I could open this up in the viewer like I did with the major incidents, but what if I wanted to add a title slide or some other charts and add to our presentation? To do that, I can choose this create view from set. And it's going to take me back into the editor, but it's not a blank slate. I've got my 3 demands here that I can build a further presentation off of. So I could add a slide if I wanted to, drag that to the top. And we could add different charts. We could give it a title. So we could call this demand review N1223. And we want to make that really big. So we can add a title. And what we can also do is leverage some of our chart templates that we were using before and add more content in the title slide or other parts of the deck. So we've got our demand charts that we saw before, but we also have some other visuals here. So we could add maybe we want to see projects by portfolio here. But the point is, any of these chart templates that we're looking at, we can add and build further presentations off of, combining the automated slide deck concept with the scaled report generation concept. And once we've done that, it's as easy as saving, publishing, and then we can open up in the viewer, and we've got our title slide added here, in addition to our bundle of 3 demands. So we've covered a lot in the workshop so far. So coming out of today's session, if you have use cases that align to what you saw today for dashboards, slide decks, and scaled report generation, you can book a demo directly with me from our website. There's a function to do it there. Also, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and get in touch there. We also have on our website what we call our Vivid Hub, where if you register there, you can see different examples already built in VividCharts, and that's a really nice way to get introduced and check out our library of use cases. So some really great resources coming out of today's session available for you. And with that, we're just going to open it up to any questions that we have from the audience.
Yeah, hey, Rob, we've got some good ones in here. So for scaled report generation, is the only way to access those via the summary pages you showed?
So For the delivery side of scaled report generation, the pages we showed today are really common, but there's also work happening on records in ServiceNow. So we do have the ability in VividCharts to provide a link to that individual scaled report from the record itself. So if I'm on a project record, I have a link on that record that takes me to the VividCharts status report for that project. So that's one really common way. We also work with customers who want a more automated distribution to set up an email notification. So, once a week, I'm a stakeholder on a project. I can get a list of all my projects in my email inbox and one-click link to the status report for that week for each project. So those are some of the other areas we provide access to those.
Awesome. Here's another one. I like the automated slide deck concept. Could you share some use cases for those in other areas of the platform?
Yeah, I think the ops review is the most common and most consistent across our customer base. We also have some customers we work with where the leader of the PMO also owns ITSM, so they do a lot of those combined report outs showing upcoming project go lives that happened in the last 30 days, and presenting ITSM or other ServiceNow platform metrics as a part of that. Another really good use case of that is for individual service reviews. So what we looked at today is looking at the service desk as a whole, but an individual service review, you could create a standard automated slide deck and then use a filter to slice it by a specific service that you have defined. So those are some of the other areas we see that technology being leveraged, but really you could point it at anything you want.
Awesome. You mentioned the PMO in your last answer. You actually have a PMO related question. It says, our PMO is leveraging SPM. What are some of the charts we didn't see today that might be useful to us?
Yeah, we saw a few of the SPM specific charts. So that status report had a project health indicator. We also have those types of charts for program and portfolio. So we have a really nice portfolio heat map that'll show you a list of all the projects in the portfolio and the trend of their overall health over time. So that's a really good example. You saw a multi-table list chart that's pointed at the RIDAC information. We also have a multi-table list that points at ideas, demands, and projects and puts them in the same list. And then another one that's pretty popular is more of our roadmap Gantt style chart. So we have a Gantt that points at a specific project and uses the project task to timeline things out. And then we also have a project Gantt that's going to show a row for each project and then timeline out based on the start and end date. So those are some of the SPM visuals that we have in the library. And those are consistently being added to. One actually we just had come from a new customer of ours who presented earlier, GlideFast. They have a burn down chart on their project status report. So we added a burn down chart that ties back to resource data in ServiceNow. So really great set of options there and a consistently growing set as well.
Cool. How do we get in touch to discuss our use cases?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I covered that on the last slide we were looking at here. On our website, we do have a link that you can just book time directly with us. And that goes to my calendar, actually. So feel free to book time with us that way. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to set up time to discuss further.
All right, last one. Do you provide templates for all report types?
We do. We provide templates in the product for scaled report generation, but also dashboards. What we also do is I'm building demo materials all the time based on what use cases are of interest for our prospects. So it's often common that something we build through an evaluation, we also want to use when they become a customer. So we can also package up anything we built in our demo instance and load that into client instances as well to give an easy starting point if there's anything that really resonated with them. Well, with that, let me drop the screen share here and just thank everyone for attending the workshop. And thank you for attending real time in general. Will, thanks for helping me host this one. Have a great rest of the day and talk to you all soon.